Hi, I'm Crystal Hurd, and welcome to my channel, That Lewis Lady. Today I want to talk about some of the top essay collections, in my opinion, that are best to read a wide range of C.S. Lewis's work. Now, I mentioned in a previous video that a lot of his work was sort of done in periodicals, written for newspapers or magazines and different things, and then they were assembled later and collected together by Walter Hooper, who was his secretary late in life, who honestly spent the bulk of his life preserving much of Lewis's work that was sort of spread out over different things. So a lot of these essay collections, they are available. They may be available through different publishers, so it's always good to check and make sure if you have some of these that you don't have any overlap, or at least just as least overlap as possible, because there are some collections that collect these here and then these here, and so you may have some two copies of the same essay depending on the publisher. If you go with HarperCollins, though, usually you can pretty much assure that most of the stuff is in those collections consistently, so that you'll have them all. So I'm going to count down and leave my favorite for last, but I do want some honorable mentions to be spoken here. If you are a person who likes to read about writing, the creative process, I would highly recommend these two, which is On Stories and Of Other Worlds by C.S. Lewis. These books are sort of collected essays on various topics of creativity, writing for children, how it all started with a picture, which is Lewis talking about how Narnia came to be. And they're just really interesting. So if you are a writer and you enjoy writing and enjoy reading about the creative process and how the mind works in creative situations, these books are really good for you to read if you're interested. So I have 4 collections that I'm going to mention today. Again, these are completely my opinion. So if you have others that you enjoy, please stick them down below in the comments. But I want to start with number 4, which is one of my favorites, which is Present Concerns. Present Concerns is a thin volume. It's pretty slim, but it does talk about, it's called Journalistic Essays. And it does have some really interesting essays about democracy, education, and there's so many really good little nuggets in here that is really interesting to hear him to sort of talk about the world that he was living in at that time. I believe Living in Atomic Age is in this one as well. So there's a lot of really interesting, yes, on Living in Atomic Age is in there as well. So and that's Lewis sort of talking about living in a world with bombs, right? So really interesting if you like to see what his opinions were on some various sort of world things and just about the climate in general during his time. My number 3, what I have mentioned before in a previous video, and that is The Weight of Glory. This book, it's not very big, but there's so much wisdom in here. And the actual essay, The Weight of Glory, which is our first essay, the namesake essay, honestly is worth the price of the book by itself. Seriously, one of my favorites. But I want to read this part to you, which is the end of this Weight of Glory, which was delivered as a sermon. Was not an essay, but actually delivered as a sermon. And this is one of those paragraphs that completely shifts your worldview and your thinking and makes you realize sort of the bigger picture of the Christ-filled life. So good. So I want to read this for you. This is the last paragraph from The Weight of Glory. Meanwhile, the cross comes before the crown, and tomorrow is a Monday morning. A cleft has opened in the pitiless walls of the world, and we are invited to follow our great captain inside. And following him is, of course, the essential point. That being so, it may be asked what practical use there is in the speculations which I have been indulging. I can think of at least one such use. It may be possible for each to think too much of his own potential glory hereafter. It is hardly possible for him to think too often or too deeply about that of his neighbor. The load or the weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid on my back, a load so heavy that only humanity can carry it, and the backs of the proud will be broken. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you could talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror or a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long we are in some degree helping each other to one or other of these destinations. It is in the light of these overwhelming possibilities, it is with the awe and the circumspection proper to them, that we should conduct all our dealings with one another, all friendships, all love, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit, immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. This does not mean that we are to be perpetually solemn. We must play, but our merriment must be of that kind, and it is, in fact, the merriest kind, which exists between people who have, from the outset, taken each other seriously. No flippancy, no superiority, no presumption. And our charity must be a real and costly love, with deep feeling for the sins in spite of which we love the sinner. No mere tolerance or indulgence which parodies love as flippancy parodies merriment. Next to the Blessed Sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. If he is your Christian neighbor, he is holy in almost the same way, for in him also Christ, Veritatis, the glorifier and the glorified, glory himself, is truly hidden. Beautiful, right? Absolutely beautiful. And it reminds us that love for one another is the great commandment. And he says it again and again. The weight of glory is, again, there's a lot of great little tidbits in here, but that main essay itself is worth the price of the book. Another one that I want to mention is Christian Reflections. If you are a Christian or you want some advice and writing and observations on Lewis's, I don't have a copy here, but and you want some advice on that, you can pick up a copy of Christian Reflections, which is a collection of some of Lewis's various writings on religion. So, what is my favorite essay collection? You probably guessed it if you've watched my other video, but yes, it's God in the Dock. Who is surprised? No one. No one is surprised. God in the Dock is such an amazing group of essays. And first of all, I love this copy. I have multiple copies of this book. Again, no surprise, but I love this one because there is a lawyer and he's in court, and that is the cover here on the book. Now, in the dock is a term in the UK which means like you are being examined, you're on trial, right? So you're in the dock, you're giving your testimony, you're being examined and cross-examined. So that essay is also in here, God in the Dock, where Lewis talks about we should be in the dock, but a lot of times we put God in the dock and we question him and we interrogate him and we ask him why things are being done, and we reverse the way things should be instead of questioning ourselves about what is best and how we should be acting and behaving and how things are. So it's a great essay. You should check that out. And it's in here. There's like 3 parts of this essay collection. So many good essays in here. I always recommend this to people. Some of the essays included in this are The Trouble with X, Meditation on the Third Commandment, Meditation in a Tool Shed, God in the Dock, On the Reading of Old Books, First and Second Things is Progress Possible, which is one I really enjoy. And We Have No Right to Happiness, which is also a great essay about what happiness really is versus what our duty to each other is. So Meditation in a Tool Shed is a very small essay, but it is probably one of my favorites after The Weight of Glory, honestly. I want to read just a little bit of the beginning of Meditation in a Tool Shed so you can kind of understand what this essay is talking about. I was standing today in the dark tool shed. The sun was shining outside, and through the crack at the top of the door there came a sunbeam. From where I stood, that beam of light with the specks of dust floating in it was the most striking thing in the place. Everything else was almost pitch black. I was seeing the beam, not seeing things by it. Then I moved, so that the beam fell on my eyes. Instantly, the whole previous picture vanished. I saw no tool shed, and above all, no beam. Instead, I saw, framed in the irregular cranny at the top of the door, green leaves moving on the branches of a tree outside, and beyond that, 90-odd million miles away, the sun. Looking along the beam and looking at the beam are very different experiences. And that essay goes on to talk about looking at versus looking along, which is a very famous argument that Lewis has. You know, if you want to experience something, you can't stand in the shadow. You have to move and be enveloped by that beam to feel the warmth, right? To see the sun. You can't see it. You can't just observe it. You have to experience it. And it's such a great essay. And God in the Dock, I tell you, I love this book. I do a lot of work. I'm working on a book now on C.S. Lewis's family, and some of you probably know C.S. Lewis's father was a police court solicitor, so that is another reason why I love this cover so much, because not only because it has these great themes of being in court, right, but it also harkens back to his youth and growing up with a father who was in court, and a very successful court solicitor during his tenure in Belfast. So those are the top essay collections that I recommend. If you have some of your favorites, please feel free to drop them below. Of course, I didn't cover all of them because there are several, but these are the ones that I recommend to people when I'm asked. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and thanks for stopping by. I will see you next time.